What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Will Brinson here, along with an incredible crew of gentlemen who join me every week to break down the full slate of games. This time we're going to look at an awesome Week 11 slate. To do so, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, R.J. White. Let's dive right in, guys. We've got a great matchup on Thursday. Also, I hope you're doing well, but we have a great matchup on Thursday night. The Commanders at the Eagles kicks off Week 11. Eagles are 3.5-point favorites with a 48.5-point total. Philly on a 5-game win streak out of their bye with the best scoring defense in the NFL over that stretch. Eagles, when they have A.J. Brown in the game, 6-0 this season, averaging over 30 points per game. And Jalen Hurts, by the way, 5-2 against the Commanders in his career. Larry, do you think the Commanders are on the same level as the Eagles?
I think they're a notch below, but Will, you mentioned what a great slate. This is one of 3 matchups with teams with a 700 or better winning percentage at Week 11 or later. It's only the 3rd time it's happened in the Super Bowl era. Of course, I'm talking about Chiefs and Bills and Ravens and Steelers. So we have 3 incredible matchups. I just think the Commanders' offense is a little bit inflated. If you look at the last 2 good defenses they faced, the Bears, we know they needed a Hail Mary to get the win in that one. And last week against the Steelers, 4.1 yards per play. They get a benefit of a fake punt that gives them the ball at the 15-yard line. Look at the Eagles' defense since Week 6. Incredible performance. You can attack their schedule as well. But look at what they did to the Cincinnati Bengals. They have the #1 pass defense. Those rookie corners are incredible. Zach Bond is amazing. He's the defensive player of the week. Jalen Carter in the middle. So I just think this Vic Fangio defense is going to hold them down. I played the team total for Washington under 23.5. And you could play the standard one at 22.5. I like the alt one at 23.5.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the Commanders are a lot of fun. They're a great story no matter what happens the rest of the way. But the Eagles may be sort of developing into an under-the-radar team, given just how good they are. I think also under the radar is this price for Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. Last week it was even money, and Saquon Barkley's like minus 180 or close to 200. This week a little more juiced up at BetMGM, minus 110. I don't mind laying that little bit of juice, though, because if you look at what the Eagles have done over the last 4 weeks, and Jalen Hurts already 3rd all-time in NFL history in rush touchdowns by a quarterback, trailing only his contemporary Josh Allen and the legend himself, Cam Newton. But Jalen Hurts has 8 rushing touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. They are clearly getting into late season. Let's go win. Let's chase. Let's try and chase. Not only like chase for the division title, but to chase like the #1 seed. And I think they're just going to give Hurts the ball when they're inside the 5-yard line. They made it clear he is their goal line guy. So I like Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown in this game. Mike, what say you?
I like the Eagles side here, Will, and I like them early, minus 2.5. I just thought it should be at least a full 3 in the first half, but the fact that you can win this with a field goal, I think is good, because where I think Washington's going to be most vulnerable is in those neutral game scripts where you have the whole playbook open, in my opinion, and that's where Philly's most dangerous, which is going to be early. It's also a primetime game at Lincoln Financial Field, which is one of the better home field environments in primetime in the NFL, particularly against a young, this is still a rookie-led team, and it's a rookie quarterback that's frankly still dealing with rib injury that isn't playing at 100% in my opinion. So I think this is a great spot, and I think we have to talk about the importance of this game. This is a playoff game. It's a must-win game, and I will go as far to say is the team that wins this game could be looking at the #1 overall seed in the NFC. I know that sounds like a stretch because Philly does have a tough schedule remaining. Washington does not. Their schedule is easy after this. And the Lions, they have a tough schedule coming up. They still have to play the 49ers. They have those division games that are going to be competitive, particularly outdoors. I think the #1 seed in the NFC is what's on the line tonight, not just the division. Big game. I like the Eagles to start fast.
Massive game, another massive divisional game for different reasons. The Bears and Packers, I said we had a loaded slate. When Bears and Packers is like your aperitif, you know that things are going to be good. Caleb Williams just got his, well, I don't know if he just got his OC fired, but his OC just got fired. And Jordan Love in some surprising company when it comes to historical starts. Who's going to win, who's going to cover? Bears and Packers, we will tell you coming up next on The Early Edge. right, welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Pick Show for Week 11. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White giving you best bets for every single game on an absolutely loaded slate. We're heading to Soldier Field, and the Bears, the much maligned Bears, are 5.5-point home dogs against Green Bay with a total of 40.5. Ew. The Packers have won 10 straight in this series against the Bears. That's the most in series history. They, of course, just fired Shane Waldron. Fun fact, that's their first midseason offensive coordinator change since 1970 when they installed somebody who's old, who I don't know, as their first ever defined offensive coordinator. The Bears have the second worst in yards per play, sacks allowed, and third down conversion rate in the NFL. To be honest, it was a justified firing. And Jordan Love, the first player since Andrew Luck in 2015 with 15 touchdowns and 10 interceptions in his first 7 games. I don't know if that's good or bad, Larry, but I know you have a best bet on this game.
I do like the Packers in this spot. You know, the Bears' O-line is just such a mess. Is it more Caleb Williams holding on to the ball and not knowing what to do, or is it how bad that Bears' O-line has been in terms of the pressure rate? But when you have an all-in spot last week after you got embarrassed in Arizona and you come up and put up 3 points against the Patriots, Thomas Brown is not going to fix everything. We saw what he did last year in Carolina. It wasn't all that impressive. They're probably going to emphasize the run. I don't think they get much of a jolt. I love the Packers coming off the bye. Probably no team needed the bye more than them with how banged up they were, specifically Jordan Love, who cost him that game right before the bye. So I think the trend continues in the Packers' role.
Yeah, I like the Packers here. Look, I made this number out to 7.2. I think it should be a full touchdown despite the road game in division. Look, the Bears, they're playing a rookie quarterback. He's going to be okay at some point. He is holding the football too long, regardless of what you think of the offensive line, in my opinion. And some of it's because that's what he's done his entire career. When you look at his entire career in college, he got away with it because of the speed of the game. It's a little different. In the NFL, it doesn't work. It's hard to create plays like that the way he wants to. But when I look at this particular spot for the Bears, I know that they're mathematically still alive. I think their season is over here. I think there's no shot they have no chance of making the playoffs. They've got a brutal schedule ahead, and I think that they can't keep up offensively. But looking at the schedule coming up too, I think they've looked ahead to it. It's Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, Vikings, Lions again. And 3 of those games are all in a row, back to back on the road. The Bears season is over here. I think they win one more game this season.
Yeah, Bears season is over. They need to focus in on figuring out if they have a Bryce Young situation on their hands. I mean, I don't think they do. I think Caleb Williams is a good quarterback. But when you look at the stats, I mean, he's basically doing what Bryce Young did last year. And then your solution is to fire your offensive coordinator midseason and put Thomas Brown in place. It's like time is a flat circle here. Having said all that, this is a dead cat bounce game if I've ever seen one. This is a principal play, guys. I mean, I'm taking the Bears plus the points. I think we see a heavy dose of DeAndre Swift. You know, everybody sort of, you talk about like getting conservative. You sort of batten down the hatches, try to run the ball, keep the game close, hope your defense can do enough. And I mean, Matt Eberflus, this team better step up for him because he's next on the chopping block in terms of the Bears trying to find a new head coach if this season goes as poorly as it has over the last month or so. Jaguars at the Lions. Talk about teams going in the wrong direction. The Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence looks like he might be done for the year. He's not going to play in this game. And that's why the Lions, Mike, are minus 14 here against the Jaguars with a total of 47, which tells you everything you need to know about which way Vegas is looking here. The Lions are looking for their first 8-game win streak since 1934. And the Jaguars, if they continue their losing ways, could become the first team in the common draft era to pick first 3 out of 5 years, which both just incredible stats. You have a lean in this game, right, Mike?
Yeah, it's going to look to the player prop market. I'll be looking at David Montgomery, just anytime touchdown scorer. I like sprinkling on 2 touchdowns as well for him. When you look at the 2 running backs they have, it really is a game script dependent kind of thing. You saw last week in a competitive game with Houston, Jahmyr Gibbs drastically out-touched him because of the game script and how they play. The week before against the Packers, they had the game in hand, and it was way more David Montgomery. I expect way more David Montgomery here, at least probably 19 to 20 carries carries in this game. So I'm going to look to go over his rushing attempts line, over his anytime or on his anytime touchdown when all those markets are available across the board. So lots of David Montgomery here for me.
Yeah, I mean, just a great point on the Lions running backs. When the game is a shootout, competitive, or they're trailing, it's all Jahmyr Gibbs. And you saw it in Green Bay when they want to, be a power run team, or they've got a lead and they want to salt things away. It's going to be all David Montgomery. He's the engine that makes that offense go somehow. Would not have thought that when they signed him in free agency, but clearly a big locker room guy as well. Vikings at the Titans. Vikings are -6 on the road against Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans with a total of 39.5. Levis actually coming off his first start without a giveaway this season. So it's like I don't know if it's not rock hard place, whatever the heck I'm trying to say. The Vikings have 30 sacks and 15 interceptions through 9 games, just the 4th team since 2000 to do so. And also trying to go undefeated in non-conference games for 2 times in 3 years, which I think says a lot about Kevin O'Connell and his ability to prepare. RJ, are you buying real estate in Tuscany with the Titans here as a possible upset with Will Levis maybe coming back and developing into something other than a turnover machine?
Yeah, I think they can do it. Minnesota's been shaky since their 5-0 start, 6 turnovers in their last 2 games against some pushover opponents that made it the games closer than it should have been. Darnold's been terrible in those games. I was hyping him up as a potential MVP before the season, looked great early in the season. Now he's dealing with a hand injury and he's not playing well. I don't think you can expect the peak performance here from the Minnesota offense. And we know the Tennessee defense is capable of stepping up. They're number 2 in yards per drive allowed on the season, despite being 21st in points per drive. Been the victims of bad field position, getting few turnovers on their side of the ball. We'll see if their cornerbacks get healthy for this game. That would help. But as you mentioned with Will Levis, I mean, the offense was actually solid in a tough matchup against the Chargers, who are the number 1 scoring defense in the league. He went 18-23 with 2 touchdowns. Offense had 5.7 yards per play. You bring that to this game, Titans definitely have a shot at winning. But getting the +6 seems like a great value here, so I have that as a best bet.
I just want to add a couple of things to everything RJ said. I agree wholeheartedly. The Titans at home have been very competitive, except for that Packers game when Malik Willis, diced them up. They have been very competitive at home, every game 1 score. And the second point is that Will Levis is finally healthy for the first time since September, not on the injury report, not limited in practice. And maybe, it would be a miracle, but 2 straight games without a turnover?
Yeah. Will Levis, who knew? We can't have Pete Prisco being right this many times in November, unfortunately. So I'll be rooting for a Will Levis pick 6 going the other way. Raiders at the Dolphins. Speaking of pick 6s, Gardner Minshew expected to start in this game. The Dolphins -7.5 at home after a massive win against the Rams on Monday night, trying to really get themselves, I think they're second in the AFC East, trying to get themselves back in the playoff race. A total here, RJ, of 44. You got a couple of bets on this game.
Yeah, first off, I like the under 44. Miami's defense played an inspired game on Monday. It looked like the 85 Bears on 3rd down. They were just relentless against Matthew Stafford in that game. It was pretty incredible. And I can't see the bye week fixing Vegas's awful offense. Can't run the ball at all. They traded away Devontae Adams, so they're more limited at pass catcher going into the second half of the season. And the Vegas defense has had a lot of tough matchups and stuck with bad field position a lot because of their offense. I think they might be a little bit underrated here. So I don't know that we're going to see a ton of points in this game. Miami is the much better team, though, and is at home. The line has come down to 7. I would love playing the Dolphins at 7. If you can get it at 7.5, where we're seeing these odds for BetMGM, I'm throwing them in a teaser. Seems like a clear teaser play for me. So they're the first half of my teaser, along with the Chiefs, which we'll get into later.
Same for me in terms of throwing the Dolphins in as a teaser. Sealer comes back, the big guy right in the middle. It makes all the difference for that defense. He's the captain. You saw what Calais Campbell did. That was very impressive. And now with the way their schedule sets up, they can make the playoffs and they're healthy offensively. So yeah, the Dolphins, to me, just to win the game, basically teasing them down to -1.
I've got the Dolphins in a money line parlay. So, I mean, with the Rams, it's sort of like a Monday Night Football, no hangover, like shake the hangover on Monday night and come in and play really well. Like the Dolphins can get themselves in the playoff mix here. I think the Rams know they have to win in New England. We'll get to that game in a minute. But this is just a good matchup for Miami. Las Vegas isn't very good. The defense should keep playing well. I think they turn over Gardner Minshew. And I would point out, too, Tyreek Hill in his career versus the Raiders. 12 games, 7 touchdowns, most of those obviously with Kansas City. He has tormented former AFC West opponents since he got to Miami, including a 10-catch, 146-yard and a touchdown performance last year, his only game against the Raiders with Miami. I think, I don't know about squeaky wheel, but I think it's maybe an eruption spot for Tyreek if the Raiders are able to keep up at all. That remains to be seen, of course. Man, a barn burner coming up on 1 o'clock on Sunday. Lamar Jackson, who oddly enough has not played against the Steelers that many times. Oh, those purple helmets. He gets Russell Wilson and Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh as a favorite. We'll tell you what the best bets are for that game coming up next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Week 11, NFL Week 11 Early Edge Picks Show. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein and R.J. White. Tell you what, just like your older brother Steelers-Ravens game, we've got a 3-point spread in this one. Unlike your older brother's Steelers and Ravens game, the total here is 48.5. Man, remember these totals used to be like 32? And I should note that the road team is favored in this one. Baltimore's dominant offense heading to Pittsburgh as a 3-point favorite. Derrick Henry, first player since Terrell Davis in 98 to lead the NFL in rush attempts, rush yards, yards per rush, and rushing touchdowns through Week 10. Reminder that Terrell Davis, and back in a different time and era, won NFL MVP that year. If he scores in this game, King Henry becomes the first player since Jerry Rice in 87 to score in his team's first 11 games. And Lamar, 1-3 in his career versus Steelers. Somehow only 4 games against the Steelers. Just a weird kind of occurrence. Larry, you're going to go, not in the rushing, you're going to go passing for Pittsburgh in terms of our prop here.
Yeah, I don't think the Steelers are going to slow down this historically great Ravens offense, especially with Alex Highsmith out. I think the Ravens are going to get to the high 20s, and I think the Steelers are going to have to keep up. And George Pickens' over receiving yards has cashed every single week since Russell Wilson took over. I mean, the air yards are way up. The targets are up. His receiving yards, he's gone at least 90 in 2 of those 3. So I just love him over 66.5. He's facing the absolute worst pass defense in the entire NFL. And it's not just because teams are having to rally from behind. They're really not very good on the back end. So give me Pickens over his receiving.
And I'm going to back the Ravens here, guys, -3. And I'll be the first to tell you, I made the number in this game -3. And that's one that I'm okay betting into. There are certain situations, really in every sport, where I'll just simply pay to find out, right? I want to see this Steelers team compete offensively against this historic Ravens team. This team is really one of the worst defensive teams they've had in a long time, but they are so good offensively that I personally think they can just score their way to a victory here. One of those situations where Pittsburgh tries to a little too much, get a little too cute. We actually kind of saw that last week against the Commanders, still worked out for them. But I think this is one of those spots where the Ravens offense just simply can't be stopped enough in this game that it becomes difficult for Pittsburgh to put 30 points on the board here. So I like the Ravens. The computer does make it 3, but considering it's 3 and not a 4.5, this is one where if the Ravens win the game, I think they're likely to cover this spread, and this is their true game for the division. They win this game, I think they've wrapped up the division, which is a great thing because this team has a late bye this year. They don't have their bye till week 14. If they can almost essentially wrap up this division now, have that late bye, get charged up for the playoffs, I think they could be in a very good spot.
Don't get me started on these week 14 buys with fantasy football. What a freaking nightmare. Rams, literally, don't get me started. I'm just going to talk about Matthew Stafford instead. The Rams are -4.5 at the Patriots on Sunday with a 43.5 total. Pats have won 2 of 3 since that 1-6 start. They won in week 1, right? They looked completely dead. Bill Belichick calling out Gerard Mayo, who called out the players for being soft, and all of a sudden they're bouncing back. Rams 8-4, including Monday night's loss when they had the big 4 of Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua playing over the last 2 years. And by the way, Monday night, just the second game under Sean McVay with no touchdowns, and just the third home game in Matthew Stafford's career for both Detroit and for LA, where his team didn't score a touchdown. I don't know, Larry. This feels like a decent bounce back spot for LA and kind of a must or can't lose game, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I trust Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford and the Big Four. When you have all the weapons healthy, that is not going to happen again, especially against this Patriots defense. I mean, the Jets were laying a full touchdown in this spot in New England just 3 weeks ago. So if you want to say that Drake May has elevated the Patriots and they're a little bit better than they were, you still got to be laying 6 here with the Rams. Great bounce back spot, a trend that I saw from Cleve Analytics. When you get upset outright on Monday Night Football in front of the nation, you embarrass yourself by not getting into the end zone. The next week, 12-3 against the number, because people remember that performance. And let's also not give the Patriots too much credit for beating a dead Bears team.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, I got the Rams and the Dolphins in a money line parlay here. I think it's around -120. I like the idea of using the Dolphins in a teaser spot, but clearly not going to tease the Rams through 0. It would be a waste of that. So I went with the money line parlay instead. I do think they get it done. You saw that stat there, 4-1 for the Rams since 2022. On the road. They're coming off a loss. It is a must-win game. San Francisco's healthy. Arizona is in the division. I mean, you can't go to New England and lose. I mean, and I do think that Jets comp is a good one, Larry. The Browns at the Saints. I mean, what a matchup. Cleveland is -1 at New Orleans, between this battle of two bottom-dwelling teams with a total of 44.5. The Saints are 29th in pass yards per game allowed this year, and they get YOLO ball. Jameis Winston coming on deck. By the way, the Browns have the 5th highest pass rate over expectation in the NFL over the last month. RJ, is this a Jameis Winston revenge game explosion spot?
Yeah, you know me. I always pick the revenge game spot. That's the only way I do my capping is whoever's got the revenge game. No, I think the Browns are going to win this game. The Saints got the interim coach bump to win. They did give up 468 yards to Atlanta, 6.4 yards per play, and Atlanta missed 3 field goals. So not exactly a dominant effort where you think the best of the Saints are coming. They didn't. I wasn't that impressed with them. They hit a few big plays while dealing with no pressure on Derek Carr whatsoever against that Falcons pass rush. That's not going to be the case when you face Cleveland and Myles Garrett. And so I think he's going to be rushed, and I don't think he's been able to complete those big passes. And I don't see how the Saints score many points at all in this game. Cleveland's offense has had the bye to adjust to Jameis Winston's strengths and then play up to them. And the unit is the healthiest it's been all year, especially on the offensive line. So I think they're going to go in and win this game. I like them -1 shop around. Should be able to get +1 still in the market, but either way, I have the Browns winning this game as a best bet.
Yeah, huge move on this game as the Browns started as dogs and now favored, and I wonder how high it's going to get. But yeah, they're totally healthy other than the guys they put on IR, like the linebacker JOK. This team is totally healthy. Nick Chubb should run all over the Saints. It was a great morale-boosting win. But yeah, 468 yards allowed. They did not really win that box score. So yeah, I'm playing the Browns as well.
Yeah, I'm on the Browns too, and it kind of comes down to, you talk about the yardage given up, the way they snuck one versus the Saints. I mean, look, part of the dead cat bounce game is you take the team that fires the coach the week that they fire the coach, but then you do expect, like any good dead cat bouncing up the ground, they're going to come right back to earth because this is just a bad spot for them. I mean, they're getting a team off the bye with Jameis who can chuck it all over the place, and I think we see maybe a little bit of a sneaky shootout here, but I think the Browns can kind of run away with this one. And this Saints team, this season is over for them. That was a nice little morale boost, but that is it. Colts at the Jets. The Jets are, checks notes, playing in their 8th straight must-win game of the year. And they have won, I think, 2 of them, maybe 1 of them. It's been a pathetic effort, and they are still favored by 4. Part of that, of course, is Anthony Richardson, who is now back in for Joe Flacco. He's starting for, quote, the rest of the season, which has been the same thing for every Colts quarterback every game this year for some ridiculous reason. Jets had the fewest points in yards of any game this season against the Cardinals, and they gave up 7.1 yards per play against Arizona. Their defense, since firing Robert Saleh, averaging 25.8 points per game allowed and 348 yards per game allowed, which is why with the rushing quarterback back in there, and I think we'll see a lot of Shane Steichen dialing up design runs for Anthony Richardson. I like Jonathan Taylor's over rush yards. You can bet it at BetMGM, 86.5. I think he clears the century mark if you want to ladder it up at all. Was going to consider the anytime touchdown. It's right around even money, but I do worry they'll use AR down by the goal line. I think this is Jim Irsay kind of pulling the strings from a roster management perspective, and he's panicked. He wants to try to win some games this year, so they bring Richardson back in, and I bet they throw caution to the wind now that he's sat for a few weeks, Mike, and they start to let him run a lot more than they did early in the season.
Yeah, I like the Colts here +4. Look, I made the Jets 3. I can't get any higher than 3 on it. So when you get to 4, I think the change to Richardson's probably going to be a good thing overall, because at least when Anthony Richardson throws the interception, it's effectively an arm punt. When Joe Flacco throws it, it could be a pick 6 because they're throwing the ball like that, on their own 20-yard line. But for me, it comes down to Jonathan Taylor in this game and just the running clock. When you got Anthony Richardson back there will definitely be design runs keeping that clock running. This Jets team, though, down to 28th in the NFL in terms of EPA per play rushing in terms of what they allow on the ground. So Jonathan Taylor, I think he's going to touch the football 20 times in this game, and I think that they're going to have some success around the red zone. But if and when they get to the red zone, the thing that I like the most, honestly, is that red zone drive, the last 3 to 4 plays of it is going to take 3 minutes now because of the rushing ability and not 19 seconds from 3 incomplete passes. So when I look at this particular spot, I think the game is going to be more competitive. It's going to be a little lower scoring because of that. And ultimately, again, this number, I could get to 3, but I can't get to a full 4. I'll take the points.
Do you guys like games of the year, games of the century, games of the millennium, games of whatever, your lifetime, whatever you want to call it? We had Manning and Brady back in the day. We have the new version of it now in Mahomes versus Allen. The Chiefs and the Bills, a battle for the top of the AFC, and it is coming up at 4 p.m. on CBS. We will give you our best bets for Chiefs and Bills coming up next on The Early Edge. Welcome back to the Week 11 NFL Pick Show here on the Early Edge. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein and R.J. White, and man, I mean, look, it's my corporate duty to hype up a game that is, big time for CBS, but like, I don't feel bad doing it. We're not chilling out here for Chiefs and Bills. This is everything you could possibly want in a Sunday afternoon matchup. I've said it before the break. I'll say it again. We had Brady versus Manning. And I think that Mahomes versus Allen, while they haven't necessarily reached the exact pinnacles of those two guys, meets the hype. I mean, Mahomes is basically the foil for Josh Allen having all these accolades. Like, he might have a Super Bowl, he might have an MVP, if not for Patrick Mahomes and him being inevitable. This is the best combined record between two teams this late in the season since that epic 54-51 Chiefs-Rams battle in 2018 that was supposed to change football forever as we would know it. It's the 8th career matchup between Mahomes and Allen. Mahomes 4-3, including 3-0 in the playoffs. So actually Allen has gotten the better of him in the regular season. And Mahomes here, an underdog. Bills are -2.5 with a total of 46. Worth noting, Patrick Mahomes, and I've said this a few weeks in a row now because the Chiefs have been dogs for some reason, 11-3 straight up and 12-1 against the spread as an underdog. The best record in both of those since 1970. Mike, I mean, it's Mahomes is the dog. I know it's the Bills and Buffalo's really good, but Mahomes is a dog here, man.
Yeah, Mahomes is a dog. You don't give this guy points. You don't give him 13 seconds. You just don't. So when you look at this particular matchup, to me, I think the game should be a flat pick at best, especially with Buffalo's injury report. I'm not sure that they're going to have a number of guys out there. I think Dalton Kincaid's going to miss this game for them as well, which I think could be a big deal. Not that Dawson Knox isn't a good player. He is, but they need some of that depth. So when I look here, immediately, I think the first thing you see is a teaser leg, right? How often is Patrick Mahomes losing by 8.5? Not often, right? So I love the Chiefs in a teaser. I'm going to pair them with the Cincinnati Bengals against the Chargers. You get that number to 7.5. So I feel really good about that. But when I look at Kansas City here, I really like what I've seen. Travis Kelce is playing well again. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins cannot be overstated. It gives them another legitimate option, not only in the red zone, but just at the end of halves, at the end of games, getting into field goal range. He's so talented at some of those situations that I think is just drastically underrated here. Kansas City's defense, elite. Pay to find out once again here with the points.
I don't know why you have to bring up 13 seconds. I think that's kind of a low blow. You already won the game. I don't know why you have to stick the knife in a little more like that. But the Bills have won 3 straight in Kansas City in the regular season. Not that that matters. I think that might play into why one of these picks you're going to hear is coming up. But I think it's an auto tease here with Chiefs catching less than a field goal. I'd happily take the full field goal if the market wants to give it to me. I think the Chiefs have the better quarterback. I think they have the better coach. I think they probably have the better pass catching unit with DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce versus whatever the Bills are going to roll out there with no Keon Coleman. Potentially no Kincaid, like Mike was saying, potentially no Amari Cooper or a limited Amari Cooper. So be interesting to see how the Bills move the ball against this defense here. Chiefs have to treat this like a playoff game. They'll lock up the #1 seed with a win. And if this was a playoff game, you'd obviously take the points in January. So I like throwing them in a teaser, but if it gets to 3, I would love to take the Chiefs as well.
And the Kincaid potential absence of Kincaid is huge because that's how people have been attacking Kansas City is with the tight end, and he would have a monster game if he was good to go. But you talked about 11-3. Will, in those 3 losses where Mahomes has been a dog, they've lost by 3, 4, and 4. So they've covered the teaser every single time. If you go back further, 105 regular season games, only 3 times has Mahomes lost by more than 8 points. So, yeah, I'm with RJ. I'm teasing it up to 8.5 and pairing it with the Dolphins.
That's all nice and well. I think the teaser is a great move. You guys are sharper than I am. I don't care. I know the Chiefs might be better. And I do think that the DeAndre Hopkins thing, it puts Travis Kelce in the Rashee Rice role, which allows them to be a little more versatile, a little more multiple with their offense and just attack in different ways. I think that's all great, well and great. Give me Josh Allen and the Bills on the money line. They're 3-1 again. They win in the regular season. They beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They have these games they get hyped up for, and they go and win them. And then 13 seconds happens in the playoffs, and the Chiefs win all the Super Bowls. So congratulations on your Pyrrhic victory for the Bills. I think they find a way to win. I think they really get in the mix for this 1 seed too. And I do agree. It's going to be an awesome game. Must-see television on CBS, 4:25 Eastern. Nance, Romo, Wolfson. Make sure and be there or be square. Falcons at the Broncos. The Broncos -2.5 in this game. Denver is 0-4 versus teams who are 500 or better this season, 5-1 against all the other competition they've had. And I'm going to take a prop here, an under prop, rare for me, which you can bet at BetMGM. Drake London under 5.5 receptions. It is -130. I think it'll actually get even juiced up a little bit more as people sort of look at this matchup. London averaging 5.8 receptions per game, which would be a career high, but he's going up against Patrick Surtain, who's the best cornerback in football right now. Surtain, according to Next Gen Stats, on the season, 24 targets, has allowed 16 catches for a minuscule 147 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and a 57.5 passer rating against him. So I think that, as weird as it sounds, they're going to funnel the offense through Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Darnell Mooney and sort of allow Drake London to be a bit, RJ, of a decoy out there to sort of drag Surtain around and open up some other stuff. Maybe not a shootout either with Denver trying to melt the clock. So I like Drake London under 5.5 receptions. Bet it at BetMGM.
I like the over in this game. It doesn't matter what Drake London does to me. 6 straight Atlanta games got to 48 points before last week. And last week, we had the 2 teams in that Atlanta game combined for 833 yards of offense. Should have scored more than 37 points in that game. Typically, you will with that much offense in it. The Denver offense has shown it can put up points against bad defenses. It had 28 plus against Carolina, New Orleans, and Vegas. And Nick is not going to have to deal with the pass rush. We've seen that that can make him crumble a little bit, but he's going to have all the time in the world to process this because the Atlanta just cannot get to the quarterback at all. So I think Denver's going to score plenty of points. I think at altitude, you can, if you're threatening on the edge of covering, you could get that last field goal from Younghoe Koo, who's going to be wanting to have a much better game after missing 3 last week. So I think it's just a game that's tailor-made for points. I'm surprised the total is this low. So best bet is over 44.
All right, let's go to a massive NFC West matchup. The Seahawks at the 49ers. 49ers are -6.5 here after stealing one against Tampa Bay last week. The Seahawks, by the way, they just haven't been good lately. Their last 6 games, 1-5, allowing almost 30 points per game. Only the Panthers are allowing more points in that same stretch. That is not the company Mike McDonald wants to keep. San Francisco, since 2021, in weeks 10 through 18, a league best 24-4 straight up. This is a team that gets right around this time, and they're starting to get healthy. Christian McCaffrey back. And the last 6 matchups here, Larry, for San Francisco against Seattle, 6-0, scoring 30.7 points per game to 16 points per game. Seattle, 13 turnovers in that stretch. You have a lean for us in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was 36-24 in Seattle. I know DK Metcalf is back. I know they had the bye. I know Mike McDonald is searching for answers on defense and will come up with some wrinkles, but that 49ers game should have been a cover. I'm still stinging over all the missed field goals that Jake Moody had, but they were moving the ball up and down the field as they are wont to do. Christian McCaffrey, 19 touches. So they're getting healthy. Like you said, this is the time of year, and I just don't think Seattle has the horses right now. And Geno Smith's showing some very alarming tendencies the last several weeks that I think will be exposed again in San Fran. So anything less than a touchdown, definitely leaning with the home team.
Yeah, I have this number at 6.5, so I think the number's right, but I'm kind of in that Mike mold with that Ravens game of just pay for the 49ers, the very good team that could score whatever. They were unlucky to score just 23, like Larry was saying last week, with 3 missed field goals, had 413 yards of offense. Seattle's defense couldn't slow them down at all, like you said in the first meeting, 483 yards allowed in that game. Now they have Christian McCaffrey back. I wanted to look to the classical divisional rematch under here, but I'm worried San Francisco goes out, scores another 30 plus to ruin it. So it'll be a lean on San Francisco to me. I could see them winning this game by a touchdown.
Yeah, honestly, I probably should have put San Francisco in a teaser with Miami. That kind of looks nice to me. We mentioned all the great matchups. Sunday night's a banger, man. Bengals at the Chargers. 2 quarterbacks, Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert, who, obviously going to be compared to each other for the duration of their careers. The Chargers are -1.5. They have allowed, by the way, the fewest points per game under a first-year head coach since the 2011 49ers. Jim Harbaugh, everybody. He's on the list twice. He tops the list. He's got both of them as a first-year head coach. He's just working his magic. Jamar Chase currently, if the season ended, would win the triple receiving crown and would just be the 5th receiver ever, along with Jerry Rice, Sterling Sharp, Steve Smith, and Cooper Kupp to do so. Mike, I think you got a pretty good look here. You mentioned the teaser before, right?
Yeah, I think it immediately screams teaser here. When you look at the Bengals, they're certainly not as bad as their record. And when you look at the Chargers, yes, they've been good, but the Chargers aren't necessarily built to blow teams out. And when you're giving Joe Burrow and this passing offense more than a touchdown here, I think it's a great look. I paired it with Kansas City, which again, I think is probably the most popular and the best teaser leg on the board this week. But you look at Cincinnati, I think this is a huge opportunity still. They're one of the teams, you talk about this AFC, there are so many teams in the mix for one of those wild card spots. If they are able to win this game, their schedule sets up pretty nice. They do play the Steelers, but after that, the Cowboys who are beat up, the Titans, the Browns, and then the Broncos. So I think that they're still very much alive. And then if you're on the side of the Chargers here, the Chargers are going to be a team that if they win this game, they're in great shape to potentially make a wild card spot. And knowing that that's the case here, I don't see them having some aggressive game plan that gets them in trouble. So I think we're getting a tight, competitive game. And that means I love the teaser here on the Bengals side.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals on the money line, and that's kind of surprising for me that I like it given how hard I stand for Jim Harbaugh. But I think when you've got a quarterback who is really coming into his own again, like Justin Herbert, who's starting to, he's been throwing the ball all over the place. He's getting hyped up again after, all the Brandon Staley stuff. Jim Harbaugh is sort of doing a better version of Alex Smith with Justin Herbert. I think Joe Burrow is going to want to come out and remind people that he is Joe Burrow against a guy from the same draft class. This is a huge game, as Mike mentioned, for the Bengals. If you flipped all the one-score games in the NFL, the Bengals would have the best record in the NFL. That's how unlucky they've been. I think Cincinnati finds a way to win this on Joe Burrow's arm. Massive game from Jamar Chase as well. Give me the Bengals money line. Monday Night Football. We'll tell you something about the Cowboys because they're playing in this game. They're a sad sack, but they are fun to watch. The Texans, on the other hand, look like they could really, they could use a win after that tough loss to the Lions last week. What to bet on in this game, we'll tell you coming up next on the Early Edge. Welcome back to the Early Edge NFL Week 11 Pick Show. Best bets for every game of the slate. Will Brinson, Mike McClure, Larry Hartstein, and R.J. White. Oh, the hubris of the NFL schedule makers and their fancy little algorithms that like to tell you Dallas in prime time is going to be good. Well, it ain't going to be good this week. The Cowboys are 7.5-point dogs to the Houston Texans at home on Monday night. I got to tell you, I mean, look, I don't, root for anybody to lose their job or bad things to happen to various people, but the Cowboys weekly public meltdown, destruction followed by whatever happens with Jerry Jones in these press conferences is just enthralling. People keep asking me what's funnier to watch, the Jets or the Cowboys? It's not close. The Cowboys. It's hilarious every week. And now they get at home where they've been terrible this year, Larry, facing a Texans team that came out white hot, might be getting Nico Collins back. They'll lose the game to the Lions and certainly looking for a big win here. You like the road team laying a big number, don't you?
Yeah, I think this line might even be shorter if the game was in Houston. That's how bad the Cowboys have been at home. Going back to the playoff loss against Green Bay, they've been blown out 5 straight times, and I'm including the Ravens game because that was, all the scoring came late for the Cowboys, but they love to get behind big at home, and that plays well with Houston because Houston likes to jump on teams and then get uber conservative in the second half. But Nico Collins coming back cannot be understated or overstated because he is such an impact guy. I mean, he changes that entire offense. It's going to open a lot of stuff for Joe Mixon against one of the worst rushing defenses in the entire NFL. So I do like Houston for the game. I like them in the first half, -3.5. Houston's only 1-9 against the spread in the second half and have not scored a touchdown in 3 straight second halves. But this is a great bounce back spot against, a pretty dead team in Dallas.
I like the under in this game. You talk about Nico Collins. I wonder how healthy he's going to look. I mean, by all accounts, he seemed to be clear going into last week. Did not play in that game. They really needed him in that game, obviously. If there's any chance he should play, he should have played in that game. So I don't know how he's going to look here. It's going to be interesting to see how this offensive line copes with Micah Parsons now that he's back, because he was the one bright spot for them against the Eagles in that bloodbath last week. I mean, they can do absolutely nothing offensively in that game. 2.6 yards per play, getting 14 yards or less on 11 of their 13 drives. So don't expect any scoring from Dallas, really. And I think the Dallas defense could step up, especially if they get some of these corners back that have missed a lot of time, and make things difficult for Houston because C.J. Stroud hasn't been at his best this year that we've seen. So you get a healthy Michael Parsons in there, wrecking up shop up front. I think we could get there with a 31-10 cover if Houston's playing well. I think we can, but it's probably going to come out in much lower. So give me under 42 as a best bet.
All right. I dig it. RJ, while we've got you, let's look ahead to week 12. What do you got for week 12 in terms of the look-ahead lines?
Yeah, the Thursday night game next week is Pittsburgh at Cleveland. Pittsburgh is 4.5-point favorites in that game. We see that the market already loves Cleveland, betting them through the pick 'em and through the number to make them favorites this week. So I think that they're going to reopen this game at 3, especially if Cleveland does what we think, especially if Baltimore runs away from Pittsburgh. I have this line at Pittsburgh -1.5 based on ratings. So I think we're getting a great value here at +4.5.
All right. Hey, look, the Browns with Jameis Winston, man. I mean, look, it's sort of like the Colts of Anthony Richardson. Let's just have some fun with these quarterbacks. Give us the guys who are entertaining. I like Cleveland in that spot as well, especially off that big game against Baltimore. Okay, that'll do it for us here on the Week 11 NFL Pick Show on the Early Edge. Thanks to Larry. Thanks to RJ. Thanks to Mike. Make sure you go to sportsline.com/join. Use promo code WINNERS and get 60% off an annual plan. And by the way, we got a Discord now, which you can join on the site, and subscribe to the Early Edge, a daily SportsLine betting podcast. For all the guys, I'm Will Brinson. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you.